It would be a lie to tell you that I knew what I was doing when we began. I learned about money pretty early on from not having any. It's the easiest and fastest way to learn about it. School can only teach you how to think, but the ways of money you have to learn by yourself. 7 is an interesting age for me because I lost my parents at the age of 7. And this is the reality of it. When you're disadvantaged, human beings by nature will treat you a certain way, especially if you're a burden to them. Imagine if someone threw a 7-year-old kid at you now and you have to feed them and clothe them and take them to school. I moved around a lot. Between the age of 7 and 18, I think I moved 8 times. I remember one of my oldest friends now, he's actually one of my business partners. His parents used to deliver to him every lunch freshly made chips and chicken. So that's when you start to see, Allah, kumbe there's a way people are living. And so you start to become aware of how bad your situation is, but more importantly, how good it could be. When I was here in USIU, all of a sudden again, a lot of my friends were rich. So they say that everybody needs a rich parents. Who said they have to be yours? One of my best friends to this day, I sort of told him the idea of the game because I had some money but not enough. So he went and pitched his dad. So he gave us the capital to begin. As part of my final year, I ended up doing a pilot for Young Rich as my project. We didn't really film, we developed it into a concept and stuff like this. One of my classmates, Josh, who ended up being the host of the show, was dating someone who used to work in media. I went in and pitched the concept, and they asked me how much money I wanted, and I said something like 1.5 million shillings an episode, and they laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. And then eventually they said, we'll give you 250. 2014, I fell into a very deep depression. My success came in an interesting way because as soon as I did Young Rich, I started getting international attention everywhere. So I got on top 40 under 40 very quickly. The interviews were being done all over the place. We are platforming these people who are supposed to be entrepreneurs, and boom, one day one of them is a fraud. I equate businesses to also like how a child grows up. You know, when you're younger, you can sort of walk around with a full diaper, but as you become 10, 11, you're expected to start cleaning up now. You know, you can't be behaving the way you were then. When I was here in USIU, I used to think like, if I just have 10 million, bro, maybe I'm 10 on a 10. I can't really mention shows, but towards the height, I've also gotten to 10 million an episode.
They almost fell in their seats.
Yeah.
All right, hi everybody, welcome to yet another episode of Financially Incorrect. I am at USIU Africa. We're here together with the ISIC team for their Financial Literacy Summit 2025. And this is the first time actually I'm hosting a live interview. I hope this will be fun. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully I don't bore everyone in the crowd. And Eugene has a really good story. But yeah, this is Financially Incorrect and this will be great. I've already said your name, but let me allow you to introduce yourself a little, right? Just tell the people watching, the people here, a bit about yourself, what you do. Yeah.
So let me start by saying I'm a big fan of the podcast, Perak. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
My name is Eugene Mbugua. I'm a filmmaker and an entrepreneur. I run a company called DNR Studios. We produce quite a number of TV shows, some that you might have heard of and some not, from a TV show called Young Rich, Get in the Kitchen, Foods of Kenya, Our Perfect Wedding, Our 5th Anniversary. We've got a bunch of reality shows, Soul Family with Sauti Soul, Kialo Culture with Betchalo and the Sisters, This Love with Wahu and Nameless. For those who love the Real Housewives franchise, we do Real Housewives of Nairobi. We have a new one currently airing on Showmax called Mummy Club, and another series of stand-up comedy shows. So we're in the audiovisual content space. We also do a lot of digital content. Have any of you heard of Control Z Tribe? So that's also us. So we produce that platform. And also I'm an entrepreneur in the entertainment space, so I'm a bit involved in nightclubs and businesses like this. And I'm also an alumni of USIU, class of 2013. So very, very happy to be here.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess it's almost poetic because the journey started here, right? And as we're chatting outside before we started, you're telling me how much things have changed since 12 years ago. So just to give context to the USIU audience that's here, what's changed in the last 12 years? What wasn't here?
So it's first of all, it's really shocking to hear that I graduated 12 years ago. Yeah. Because I've always considered myself a young person. I think, I guess not
You're
anymore.
almost getting out of that youth.
This year.
Youth buzz.
This year, yeah, 35, I'm no longer youth. Oh but don't tell people. So when I was here, the school ended at the library. So every building from that block pull backwards here didn't exist. It was all sports field. I remember even the swimming team used to go to Kasarani at the time. And even then, we thought like this was the most advanced campus in Kenya. And you know that thing of I was just telling Francis on the way up, I was hating like they've expanded so much. What is all these buildings? And you know what I realized? That was old man talk. So yeah, lots has changed. Glad to see that the school is growing. I come here often. I'm often invited to speak, especially to the School of Journalism. But yeah, proud to be an alumni of the school.
Okay, I mean, you got into the job market, so to speak, or to the job creation market really early, right? Really early on. You started making, I think you started pitching for stuff while you're in university. You worked part-time when you were in school. Technically, I think you were in school 5 to 9. And during the day you would work, doing odd jobs, multiple things. Looking back now, what do you think you could have been taught at USIU to get you ready for the job market? An ability to make money. Not
An
just
ability
the
to
job.
make money. Yeah. I personally was very privileged with my experience here in USIU, not necessarily because of what they were teaching, but because of how much advantage I took of the facilities. So I joined here in 2009, I believe, and at the time I already knew I was interested in the film and television space. USIU offered then TV production, which initially when I signed on, I thought I was going to learn how to make TV shows, but it was more on the journalism side, as you know, it's a journalism school. And so joined as a part-time student, coming to classes. I don't know if it still works this way, but this evening classes, 5 to 9 p.m. You can do 2 classes in the evening, and then again longer classes on Saturdays and Fridays, because I think Fridays also is a weekend here. I don't know if things are still the same, because Thursday is when the official weekends.
Right.
So yeah, used to come on the weekends, evenings, and then during the day, out of necessity, I needed to work. So I learned about money pretty early on from not having any. So it's the easiest and fastest way to learn about it. So during the day, again, I was doing all these odd jobs. I was boom swinging. I was filling up. Do you guys know what extras are on a film set? Yeah. They're the guys who fill the background and they pay you 500 shillings. So I was doing a lot of that. But then when I joined the school, one of the things that struck me very quickly is just how much facilities I had access to, and I started to make money with it very quickly. And I'll take you through some of it. So, for instance, is Zeddy still here? Yes. In the journalism school? So Zeddy runs Zeddy runs the journalism section, and they have all these facilities. So they had a computer lab where you could come and use the Macs to edit and stuff like this. So immediately I knew I could make money from this. So I started to do my own edit jobs using the machines. Again, hopefully this doesn't get back to Zeddy, but I also used to sign out equipment and go use it to do different jobs. One of the jobs I got very early on was from these bits of work I was doing on film sets as an extra, as a boom singer. My friend Dexter and I sort of learned what the lingo was. Cut means go. No, cut means stop. Action means go, and the director does this and that. So we set up our first company to teach primary school kids basic film. So you know how they have drama and music club.
Right.
And what were we using?
equipment,
editing from here. And you see, ideally, nobody really stops you, because in so doing, we were learning.
Yeah.
I went much further and also actually involved my lecturers, Mr. Mutua, who I don't know if he's still, Mr. Mutua is still here. And so Mr. Mutua actually started to host the students we were teaching in primary school here to learn journalism, and then I would charge the parents of those kids. Yeah, right. But Mutua is also happy because I'm also learning what he's supposed to be teaching me.
Right.
So it was a win-win for everyone. The lessons I wish that they would have taught here, and I think they do. School can only teach you how to think, and sort of the technical elements of what your craft is, but the ways of money you have to learn by yourself. And you know, there's so many avenues now. It's you attending a conversation like this, listening to podcasts like what you're listening to, and that generally has to be self-driven.
Yes.
USIU also has another element of it. You know, a lot of kids here are rich, so I imagine they don't really need the money, do they? But for those who ideally do, I think necessity is usually the best teacher and the best motivator to try and get you to learn about money.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good one. I relate and I understand. Right now, with the work that you do at DNR, what's the industry like? Like, what's the lay of the land? And why is it so difficult to capture and monetize value in the media and entertainment space within our region? Yeah.
So when I came in, again, I'm an old man, 17 years in the industry, I think. When I came in, things were very much different. Media wasn't as democratized as it is now. How it used to work is like how I got my first TV show was you come up with a concept and you take it to one of the broadcasters, you know, and then it was the top 4. You had Citizen TV, Nation Media, KTN, and K24. And they had money to spend because advertising revenue was flowing in that direction. So you'd ideally come up with a concept and pitch it to the channels. And then a commissioning editor or the equivalent position would then decide whether it was worth the time of day. It's gatekeeping, as we call it now.
Right.
And so, like my first TV show, I sort of pitched to all of those guys. It was called Young Rich. We used to profile young Kenyan millionaires. Guess where I did the pilot? Using whose equipment?
Right. Yeah.
So, but anyway, so I went pitching it around to different people, and then eventually, I think after many months, one person decided it was worth the time, gave me a contract, and boom, that's how your career begins. And then, once you prove your worth, you're then able to run. However, now everything has changed because now you have self-publishing, which happened very soon after I got into the industry. And what that means is there's no longer a gatekeeper. And that's both good and bad. It's good in the sense that anybody can become, a filmmaker or a content producer as you please. Now some of the biggest content output makers are, I'm trying to avoid the word content creators and the influencers, is YouTube couples and things like this. So self-publishing quickly became a thing. And so now the space is entirely democratized, which means everybody can enter, but also means it's quite saturated because then you have to do way more than the other guy to just get eyeballs. And unfortunately, also the direction that's taken now is you have to do the more absurd thing than the other guy.
More sensational.
Yeah. So you're seeing a situation where more surprises. So you're seeing a situation where it used to be that the gatekeepers were also important to a degree because then they almost like sieved through what should reach the public and what shouldn't. And now, pretty much, when you go on TikTok, people are famous for all kinds of things. I think the one that fascinates me the most is those guys who eat like a huge chunk of food, and they have thousands and thousands of followers and comments. So I think that's I would say is the main difference.
Yeah.
However, with the same breath, I don't think there's ever been a more opportunity, especially for young people like yourselves, to break into media and that space.
Yeah. I mean, what's in that respect? What's the challenge with this currency of fame? Like we were chatting earlier again and saying, before. You had to be famous for doing something. You're a famous songwriter, a famous film producer, famous actor, but now you can just be famous.
Yeah.
And how does that make it more challenging for you to make money?
I think there's a mixture now especially in the digital space. There's a mixture of fame and infamy. I think we're all familiar with these celebrities now who we know are famous for clout chasing. It's because they want to do one absurd thing. And I think maybe in the traditional format, they used to be rich and famous, and now there's just famous. Because for a lot of digital content and people who've found some fame, if they are being very honest, a lot of them have not been able. The financial model on the digital side is still not clear. It's still not clear how people will make money. It's clear in the Western world. So, for instance, if you look at Jake Paul and Logan Paul and those kinds of guys, and Mr. Beast, you can just be a YouTuber, and the platform itself will be able to generate enough revenue for you so long as you're making good content.
Yeah.
Here, it's a bit different in the sense that our eyeballs are still not as valuable to advertisers. So you could have 1 million people having watched something you've produced, and I think the revenue for that is 3,000 shillings.
Yeah.
So you have all these famous people who have not figured out the financial element of it. And what follows that is almost a degree of desperation.
Yeah.
So that's why you're seeing a lot of these people being busted with fake lives, rented cars, they're fronting for the cameras. And of course, also that follows, it gets worse. There's depression that comes with it. I'm part of we have a comedy show, a stand-up comedy show. And one time I was sitting with some of the comedians there, and they were telling me about the pain of being a recognizable face in a matatu. because people don't actually so as you can imagine, that comes with all kinds of mental issues. So I would say, and then the worst thing about if you're a wrong person and you become famous for the wrong thing, and doing it is almost impossible. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you always remember. Like, have you ever seen someone who did something upside? Oh, you're that guy who did that thing.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, especially if you're young and coming in, there's that, I would say, maybe rush to want to quickly do a thing and blow up on the internet. But I would be a bit more cautious because I think also, in as much as you're saying it's all liberal and stuff, employers are watching those things. Like if when we hire and we go and find that you have a Twitter that's been hating on everybody in the industry, and that you're also famous for blowing up on your bosses. I mean, I don't want to be the next guy.
Do you hire people who do a day in a life? I see these a day in a life especially young content creators, and a day in a life with an engineer, a day in a life over this? Would it turn you off as an employer?
No. I think that the only thing I'm usually wary of is extremities. We are ideally not against expressionism,
Right.
But extremities, usually you'll find trouble down the line.
Okay.
And it's starting to bite now. So the world, humanity, I think, moves in cycles. People, if you look at history, there's been instances where people became very liberal, and then it self-corrects, and they become very
straight and narrow. And
So if you look, for instance, and usually this happens, if you follow history, pandemics also have quite a bit to do with it. So after the 1918 flu pandemic, I think there was the Spanish flu. There was a roaring 30s that followed, where everybody was a free spirit, and it was about expressionism and then Christianity and moderation really followed. So we've also just come off. I think our generation began with that woke culture, where everybody has their pronouns on their email addresses, and now if you observe the world right now, it's backtracking.
Last sort of question on your industry before you get into your story. The future of where you're at right now. I know there's lots of questions, and everyone's talking about AI and what's it going to do to content. I'm actually curious about that element of conversation, what you can see or what you cannot see, and then also streaming vis-a-vis reality TV. I mean, in the West, it's really taken off with Kai Cenats and what's the other guy called Speed and all those things. What do you think that would potentially do, and do you think it would potentially work for people here to attempt 24-hour streams? And I still find it absurd that people watch someone
even
sleeping.
I wonder where they get the time. So let me start with streaming, because I think that's just the one I remember off the top of my mind. Again, the problem with a lot of how media and sort of digital space works in the West is a lot of it is platform driven on their side. So I know, for instance, the example of Kai Cenat, when you do the math of how much money he earns from the streaming platform itself is where he makes most of his money.
Yes.
And then, of course, you're able to monetize the eyeballs to advertisers. Yes. I was looking at the other day I think Joe Biden has a podcast very similar to this, and I was looking at his Patreon earnings, and I'm just like, the platform is paying him that much.
Yeah.
The Logans and them, the platform is paying them that much. Here, the platforms don't. Now, what are the other avenues that people who are big on the internet are making money from? It's events, so ticketed events, and you'll see a lot of the podcasts now are taking that route. And then, of course, it's sponsorship. FX Pesa comes on board and cuts a check and allows this to continue. The platforms aren't paying yet, and I don't believe the audiences are also capable of paying to the level that you will need it to occur. So I would say approach that with the notion that all these platforms are for getting a following and maybe creating a name for yourself. But the monetization is not going to come from the platforms.
Yes.
It has to come from other avenues. I think you've been a bit of an outlier in that sense to sort of see that argument. And the reality of it is this: we live in a poor country. Sometimes, especially for us in the room here, because you're middle class, you forget. But our average earner in Kenya is extremely low. The guy has, I think the daily wage is 200 shillings or thereabouts?
Even just to give an answer, I think only 3 to 4% of people earn more than 100,000 shillings a month. Yeah. So
for the majority of the masses, they're having to choose between, they have food and transport and school fees to pay. They're definitely not going to spend, a very small percentage of them is going to spend money on your thing.
Yeah.
But human beings still want to do experiences and do this. So I think that's the direction for that. In terms of AI, this is a mammoth that all of us are having to contend with. With every generation that comes into the workforce, everybody has what their advantage was at the time. So I did a TV show. My first TV show was called Young Rich, and we used to profile young millionaires, as I mentioned. And I noticed a trend with those millionaires we profiled then. This was in 2013, 2014. The first group were people who made money from mobile phones. So when the mobile phone came into Kenya, I remember one of my mentors, his name is Dennis Makori. He created a company called On-Phone Media, and I don't think anybody in this room will know any of his services. Have you guys heard of value-added services on mobile? When you used to have to type out your own ringtone? No, it's a foreign concept.
They talk about a ringtone.
So he's here on WAP.
Like, what?
Do you remember that?
So
he had a platform. He had a company that used to give mobile phones, because mobile phones were very new at the time, value-added services. Do you guys remember this? You must have had the guy when you call someone and you say thank you for calling Peter. did you know that Peter means such and such? And I'm sure your mom's had Bible verses on there and stuff.
The ring back,
Yeah. So his company was doing this work. And at the height of it, he was making, I think, 5 million shillings a day.
Wow.
A day from this business. And so there was a whole crop of millionaires who came from that advantage of the mobile phone.
Yes.
Then the next group that I also profiled were the guys who benefited from the internet. And so here you have your Lipa Laters, and we can list. I think those are more common now.
Yes.
Guys who created applications. These are guys who created.
There was a time in Nairobi, everyone had an app, or everyone was creating an app.
Yeah, was creating an app,
or
finding ways to connect payments to the internet. Like Pesa Pals and them, Cellulant. So there's also a wave of people who took advantage of the internet. So I think in your case, it's AI, because in any knowledge environment, unlearning is extremely difficult. So for us to start now unlearning what we know, to crack AI is difficult, and for a lot of people, impossible.
Yes.
But for a lot of people coming into the industry now, I think you have to be very aware that that's your entry advantage. So in the same way those guys made their millions from mobile phones, in the same way those other guys made their money from the internet, yours is AI. If you can learn it, crack it, come prepared with it, you're going to have a very, very high advantage in the workforce that you're entering. So a very simple example, in my company, we used to be able to hire a big team. When you're producing, let's say we are producing an ad for Safaricom. You used to have to hire someone to do the script, someone to do ideation first, to do the script, to do what you call those drawings that then they used to...
The sketches.
Yes. Then you hire some camera guys and editors and so on. So the whole team is almost like 30 people. Now, with one single person at my office, we can sit using VO3, ChatGPT, do ideation, do scripting, and then generate the videos using, again, VO3, which is available to all of you. And in 3 hours, everything is complete by one person. So who becomes the important person in that room? That prompt engineer, which is what they're calling it now.
Yes.
And so since you guys don't have much to unlearn, I would say, the thing to go now with the full knowledge of is AI. And I think there's going to be a new crop of a workforce that just knows how to work that. And then the rest of us will have to go farm.
Financially speaking, like this example you've given us, how much are you saving financially a team of 30 vis-a-vis now a prompt engineer?
So it's still not at a level where it's like widely accepted. One of the things that's very scary about AI is just how quickly it's learning. So this system, I think you all know about VO3, yes? Which I think it launched, 3-4 months ago? And for the first time is when we are now generating videos that to the untrained eye, you can't discern whether it's AI or not. So up until 3 months ago, we called it. But that tells you by end of this year, we'll probably be charging clients for that and firing everybody else who does the other lower work. However, still, we're still not at the level where it's going to replace television yet. Because see, when you watch Real Houses of Nairobi, you actually want to see the character of Mine. You actually want to see the character of, the other people that you like. When you watch Mami Club, you want to see Jackie Matubia. So you're still not at the level where I can replace her with AI. But when I can, or when you can't tell the difference, we're going to start creating new characters. And I feel that's coming in the very near future. I was also I spoke today earlier at an AI conference, and I was saying, for the first time now, I think we're also going to have the age of individually owned successful media companies and other forms of companies. So like it's a single person running everything. Because right now with those tools, as an individual, I can create a film. And a lot of people are already doing it now by there globally, so don't be left behind. So we're going to see a phase of individuals who sit by themselves and from A to Z create viral content that travels, and then they're going to keep all the resources to themselves that they generate.
Interestingly, that's something that I think 2 years ago, so I was doing some work at Nation, and it's something I was thinking about, and I was like, do I foresee a future where, because technically machine learning, if it takes all of your data, takes all of the understanding, so for example, it can analyze all the Premier Leagues, right? All that have happened from 1992 to last year, and be like, these are the things that the public like to see. This is what makes it dramatic. This is what makes it fun, exciting. And I think it technically would be possible for a machine to create and script and write out a very interesting season that could then create the characters, and we would watch it, and because it knows what we find exciting, would be able to create a product that can compete with the real product and possibly even beat it. And I don't know. Anyway, it's a lot of questions.
We're there already. This Gorilla series, are you seeing it? There's one I really follow. There's it's a really absurd thing on Instagram. It's a gorilla character, and they have a friend called Downy, which is really offensive because it's someone with Down syndrome, and they go on adventures. And it's a series, and I follow it daily because they post a video daily. Yeah. These guys are in Sweden, they're in Germany.
And it's purely...
It's a single, you can tell it's a guy in his room just doing the thing. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, let's get into your story now. Right. So the first 7 years of your life, right? First 7 years of your life. What's the situation like? What are you understanding about money? What's your money situation? What's life like?
Yeah. So the first 7 years, 7 is an interesting age for me because I lost my parents at the age of 7, and so a lot changes for you when that happens. And being from an African setting and not from a very well-off setting. So as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't kidding when I said I learned about money from not having any. And so you sort of start to understand very early on. I had a bit of a problematic childhood in the sense that I went through some trouble. And a lot of that trouble I can attribute to the fact that my relatives didn't have money. So when you're often at a young age, you have to live off people, you're a burden. I think you all know a bit about how people can treat you when you do not have resources.
Is it a bit like the Cinderella story where there's was she like a step somewhere and just didn't get the same amount of treatment and right?
And this is the reality of it. When you're disadvantaged, human beings by nature will treat you a certain way, especially if you're a burden to them. So it's not really about them being bad people. It's that imagine if someone threw a 7-year-old kid at you now and you have to feed them and clothe them and take them to school. There's a strain. So you sort of, I became very aware of the element of luck. By luck, I mean LACK, not the U. Very early on. And I sort of feel like this shaped a lot of my thinking then. I didn't know what I wanted to be, but one thing I knew I didn't want to be was poor. And sort of I feel like that up until the age of 7, I'd say that was my main notion of money.
When were you first conscious about like money is the thing that would change the scenario? Is there like a specific thing that happens or a moment you go through, a period where you're like, if we had money, this would be different?
I think I started to understand about resources and money because, as I mentioned, my life dramatically changed when I was 7. But then I moved around a lot. Between the age of 7 and 18, I think I moved 8 times.
To different families.
To different families, so initially I lived in Kitale, then I moved to Njoro, in Nakuru, then Thika. Then I came to a school in Donholm called St. Mary's. And that's when I started to see guys being dropped to school in cars. And you start to see that lunch is different. I remember like one of my oldest friends now, he's actually one of my business partners. And Ken, his parents used to deliver to him every lunch freshly made chips and chicken. Freshly made, as in it can't sit in the, the yours sits in the lap is soggy by the time it's lunch. The white's having any of that. So that's when you start to see, Allah, there's a way people are living. Then you start to hear people have PlayStations. And so you start to become aware of how bad your situation is, but more importantly, how good it could be. So I feel like that's sort of like as a child, I started to sort of see other people's privilege and go like, okay, so it's possible. And I think maybe that's one of the best things about, one of the things I was very lucky about is I was able to, my relatives, God bless their souls, were able to give me very decent education, which is also why I even ended up at USIU.
Right.
And sort of this exposure is what allows you to see what's possible. There's also a theory now, part of the reason Gen Z are so upset everywhere in the world is because they are seeing how others are living. Before the internet, you didn't know that guys were having it good in London and but now you can see how good they're having it. And so I think that was the same for me, that exposure to be able to see, okay, so it's actually possible to have non-soggy chips. It's possible to have some privileges and to travel and to do all these things. So I think for me it was exposure, going to these schools and sort of seeing how people were living and seeing what's possible, and it sort of got me to aspire to it.
When do you first interact with cash?
So I started to make money as soon as I could. When I went to high school in Upper Hill, I was in Upper Hill between Form 1 and Form 3, which is interesting because also Upper Hill has produced a lot of people in the creative sector. So in Upper Hill, there used to be at break time, because people have pocket money. I don't know if you watch high schools you guys went to. At break time, there was canteens. So there was a very good canteen, not by the standards then, that sold samosas and chapati. and that was slightly more expensive, and you know, bicycle for rich kids. Then there was one that sold ngumu. You know ngumu? So it's 5 shillings. It's very nini, but it's 5 bob, and a lot of people could afford that.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford either. So I went to that ngumu shop and asked them if they had work. And it turns out, because I could see students working there.
Yeah.
So it turns out they actually had work. So I started out selling ngumus at Ilapa Hill School in Form 1 and being paid in ngumus. So that, and then sort of progressed and so got more duties and started paying me a bit of money. And I think towards the end I became a shareholder
in the ngumu shop.
In the ngumu shop, up until the time I left. So I would say this was properly my first business.
Right.
Now, still in high school, I also met, I was in drama club, which is also how I got into what I do now. And while I was there, I met an older student called Shirima. He's a Tanzanian guy. I actually met him the other day. Very, very interesting. Shirima was an artist. He used to do very good calligraphy. And then writing letters to girls' schools was a really big deal. So Shirima gave me an envelope that had like really good calligraphy. And he said, I'm sure Form 1s will buy this for 20 bob. Because a normal envelope is like 3 bob, I think. So I went hooking these envelopes to Form 1s and we sold a bunch. So I was selling a ton of envelopes with graffiti on them to Form 1s, making some decent money. Yeah. Then around the time is also when DVDs had come around. So you had this like huge chunks of DVDs with like music in them. Yes,
whatever.
Stuff, yeah. So we're also selling a ton of DVDs.
Yeah.
I don't know if you should have said that. That's gonna come back to bite me. And then we were just like doing a bunch of things, and we learned that you could take a regular watch and using super glue and you know, those fake jewels, bejewel it, because at the time, you know, hip hop was big and that was a thing. So we also sold that. So I was doing a ton of different things. So I would say high school was
like a money making space. What were you doing with the money?
Next venture.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you weren't spending it?
No, I was also just eating a lot of it. So I was making money from the ngumu shop and going to the nice cafeteria
to buy.
Alafu now buying the sausages like chapos. But also in all honesty, a lot of it was going into the next thing.
Yeah.
So like the envelopes are what led to the watches, are what led to the DVDs. And but then I continued this after high school. I continued it here. So for instance, when I joined USIU, I tried a bunch of things here. Some that failed, some that succeeded. There used to be Fifis. I don't know if it's still there. No. Okay.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, Fifis. Yeah.
Anyway.
So Fifis used to be a really cool club just outside the door. I remember when I joined the school, I was like, everybody has tattoos. So I went around town in the CBD and convinced a bunch of tattoo artists to come and do an event here on a Thursday evening. And my thinking was outside Fifi's, guys are going to be drunk, they're going to get tattoos. I hadn't really thought it through much. So we did an event. There, a bunch of tattoo artists paid me. And we set up a tent outside Fifi's. But then the lady who owns the land behind Fifi's came out and said we were doing devil worshipping, so the whole thing was shut down. Then, still in year 1, I went to Naivasha with some friends camping. I was like, yeah, this is really cool. So I came back and started a tours company. So I got a bunch of people in my class to pay to be taken to Naivasha for camping, which was really dumb because I made them get into matatus. We changed matatus like 4 times. Like a group of 10 people.
Yeah.
That business failed because in Naivasha, I was in charge of the stash of alcohol for the whole group. And I left it in another matatu and we changed matatus.
Oh, no.
So I didn't get any good reviews and that business collapsed. But more importantly, I also set up something called Game Coat, which, you know, the 5-5, which is now called Tutias. What is it called now? Do you guys know 5-5? Tutias? What is it called now? Tots.
Oh.
So same building where there's Tots. You know at the back they have those vibandas. I think there used to be a Swahili restaurant there. If you go there even today, you'll see there's like some drawings on the wall of some video game stuff. So that was my shop. It used to be called Game Coat. And how that came about was when we were still in school, there never used to be Mutuzo laws. Mutuzo, again, you guys already know what Mutuzo laws are. Mutuzo laws are drinking laws, like where you can't sell alcohol before 5 p.m. And so before that, there used to be you could drink all the time. And for USIU has like people go to classes, 3-4 hours a day total? So in between, guys would go and drink at Fifi's. Then Mutuzo laws come, and you can no longer drink during the day. So you had all these guys with nothing to do. So that's when I thought of the idea of setting up the Game Coat. And what the Game Coat was is I bought a bunch of TVs, and we had Xboxes and PlayStations. And so guys would come and play PlayStation and charge them a minute. And then for the ladies, we used to sell those 50 bob bootleg films. So I'd go to town, get the latest series in, and then come burn them on DVDs and sell them. So when I was here, they used to call me the movie guy as a derogatory term. but I got them. Who's the movie guy now?
Fair enough. Let me ask, when you're setting up all of these ventures, where are you getting the money to do these things? I mean, I'm coming from the background also of, you're coming from a place of lack.
Yeah.
So where are you getting the money
Previous
to
ventures.
do these things?
Previous ventures. So as I mentioned, every money I was making, it will always be the next. But then as they got bigger, there's something interesting that happened. When I was here in USIU, all of a sudden again, a lot of my friends were rich. They had cars and their parents had money. So they say that everybody needs a rich parents. Who said they have to be yours?
Yes.
Yeah. So, so like one of my best friends to this day, his name is Muchi. Muchi was from a wealthy family. So I sort of told him the idea of the game coach. I had some money, but not enough. So he went and pitched his dad. And his dad actually came and saw what I was trying to do. And how much did you need? 300,000. So he looked at me, and I could see he was not sold at all. He was not, but I was like, you know what, these kids have an initiative, so let me just. So he gave us the capital to begin. So someone else's rich parents.
Doesn't have to be your parents.
Doesn't have to be your parents.
Yeah.
But it also speaks to also like going to a school and the peers you meet at that time, because also later after Game Court, my next venture was the TV production company, because I started that when I was still in school here.
Yeah.
I started pitching around Young Rich when I was still a third year, I think. And even then, for Young Rich, it was still other people's parents who financed it. Because, and of course...
And USIU equipment.
And USIU equipment. Yeah. The rich parents don't have to be yours. So when these parents were giving this money, they were giving it as shareholding for their kids. So it's Muchi comes in as a shareholder in my business. And I was learning early on pitching and fundraising, I guess you might call it then.
Yes.
It's through my circles is how I was able to sort of finance some of those things. And also always on the previous money goes to the next one.
Yeah, okay. On the personal side, at this time in your life, how are you surviving? How are you, meeting daily expenses, eating, all of those things?
I was able to fix that pretty quickly. You see, there's a quote I have tattooed on my arm. It says, "Life is a just employer." So life is a just employer. He gives you what you ask, but once you set the wages, you must bear the task. If you're doing all those things, you're making some money. Ideally, you're not broke. So while I was here, you might, when you're disadvantaged, you have to work harder than the next guy. But when you do, usually there's fruits to it. So I think I had money in my pocket by year 2, because I was teaching primary school kids basic film during the day. I was still writing for the paper Daily Nation on doing film reviews. I was selling my 50 bob movies probably at Game Court. I was still trying to sell TV shows. So I can't say that my pockets were empty.
Yeah.
I was not rich though, because remember I was still very hungry, and I was also very aware that if I graduate before I've cracked what my thing is, that it's going to be very difficult for me.
Yeah.
So there was also like this. A lot of the money I was making was. First, I was already okay in terms of just day-to-day living, but a lot of the money I was making was going towards like what's going to be my thing. What's going to be my thing?
So you're actively putting money away to trying to figure out what your thing was.
Gambling it, because remember all those things I'm talking about. They cost money.
Yes.
So when you do that kind of event, then it doesn't make money. That money is lost.
Okay.
Sometimes the Game Coach I think was provided me quite a bit of stability for a while.
Yes.
But a lot of that money was also just investing in myself, going to trainings. Shooting pilots, trying out other new ventures, and also having a great time. My university years were amazing. Yeah. We partied like crazy.
While doing all these other things.
Yeah, I don't know where that energy was coming from.
Okay.
But it's also 4 years, so
yes, it's a long
time. Period,
and I want to get to this period where you then pitch Young Rich, right? And I want to ask you specifically around what plays the biggest role in you getting Young Rich? Is it networking? Is it luck? Is it just sheer hard work? What allows you to be able to pitch, to get the Young Rich show on TV? And what are the revenues for that?
Yeah. So Young Rich was a combination of all those things. It's, there's a large degree of serendipity in everything you do, which is, luck meeting preparedness, and again, just luck to a large degree. And Young Rich was a very big part of that. So you remember, I mentioned the first company that we set up, my friend and I we were teaching primary school kids basic film. And while I did that, one of the places we used to teach was McKinney School every Friday. And often, sometimes because I had all these ventures running, I didn't have enough. When we started initially, I didn't have enough money to move from here to Ngong Road using matatus. So what I'll do is I'd get to town and then walk from town to Ngong Road. It didn't seem like much then, just what you needed to do. Initially, I used to walk like a car. So up Valley Road, Ngong Road. Then
come round.
Yeah, then someone told me you can just go through Kilimani. Why is Kilimani? Because I've not been to that side.
Right,
anyway.
right.
So anyway, so I started going early. So I'd leave Friday early here, and so I have more time to walk through the neighborhoods. And then as I'm walking through those neighborhoods, in those days, I don't know if you remember, they used to put for rent and price of the apartment.
Yes.
50,000, 60,000, 2-bedroom. Like, what do you mean? 60,000 shillings for a 2-bedroom. What does that even mean? And so I started to become fascinated by those compounds. Mm-hmm. So every time those gates would open, I'm sort of peeping inside and I'm seeing some guy driving in a BMW and they look young. And so that's where the idea for Young Rich came. Like, what are these people and what are they doing to make this to make money? And so I went and scribbled it down and I came. I thought it was a brilliant idea, put it down on paper and started knocking on TV stations' doors, tried to pitch it. And nobody bought it for, I think, 2.5 years or 3. And part of it was because, you're a young kid. Who's ever heard of you? What have you done? Nothing. And then I came and brought it here to school. And I sort of started to pitch it to my schoolmates. Mm-hmm. When I was in USIU, I think, I don't know if this still counts, but group work accounts for what, like 30 or 40% of your marks? Mm-hmm. I was like a fan favorite. People loved being in my group because there was one rule: join the group and do nothing. Just stay out of my way. Because I loved doing like the filming and stuff, and most people didn't want to do it anyway. So I ended up doing, as part of my final year, I ended up doing a pilot for Young Rich as my
project,
my group project. But I remember we didn't really film. We developed it into a concept and stuff like this. And then around the time, one of my classmates, Josh, who ended up being the host of the show, was dating someone who used to work in media. He was an older student, because remember when you're a part-time student here, a lot of your classmates are older folk, not necessarily your younger students. Yeah. And so Josh introduces me to Wairimu, who then ends up getting a job at K24 around that time. Mm-hmm. And that's how I pitched Young Rich at Fifi's in between drinks. Yeah, she gave me 5 minutes. So I came and then it was like, okay, you're done. Can we just get back to
socializing?
But then she remembered it, and that's how I basically got in. And we get this contract. I went in and pitched the concept, and they asked me how much money I wanted, and I said something like 1.5 million shillings an episode, and they laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. And then eventually they said, we'll give you 250. after the laughs. Yeah. But this is humongous because it's a weekly show. So it means I'm manning, from the very onset plus VAT, I'm manning $1 million a month from the very onset. And then the show premieres. I've graduated on a Saturday, and the show premiered on national TV the Friday before, the previous night. Mm-hmm. So it's like this beautiful ending to
this tumultuous.
But as you can see, it all has to do with the networks I was keeping here, with the people I was doing groups with. And by the whole crew for Young Rich, the first season, was all my classmates. Like, with that exception. There was a guy here called, I don't know, for those who do journalism, do you hear the name of Chris Sang?
No.
Chris Sang. Chris Sang was a legend. How? Yeah, so Chris Sang was our DOP, and there's a lady called Barbara Carona who was my classmate, who was a producer. Josh was the host, and stuff. And all to say, there's a lot of power in just starting with where you are, with what you have. Yeah. So yes, it had to do with that, just my network at the time. Okay. Yeah.
This is $1 million a month. What are you doing with it? What's company money? What's your money? How are you distributing it? And what does it do for your financial space at the time? So
at the beginning, I went around telling everybody I'm a millionaire. That was tough one, And then you start spending before you have it. You know that thing? But also nothing prepares you for the business cycle. So we've signed the contract. They tell you, okay, go produce episodes. I've gone out, I've hustled, I have no money, I've borrowed everywhere, I've produced the episodes. So I've delivered them. So now I'm expected to be paid. Then there's an invoicing cycle. What do you mean there's an invoicing cycle? What does that mean? You deliver first, you invoice, and we might pay you in 30 or 60 days. So what am I supposed to be doing in between? And you see, you're supposed to be still submitting episodes because it's a contract for 52 episodes, 26 episodes at the time. Yes. So immediately, I am in a major financial crisis.
Because you have no money to produce the other episodes.
No. And I don't know why naively, I thought as soon as I do the first 4, you're just going to pay me and I walk away. And therefore, if any of you has done business in Kenya, you know now the collection headache. So it took me, I would say, easily maybe 5 months to get out of that rut, to understand the
cash flow cycle,
invoicing and stuff. But then also the beautiful thing is when you have a contract, people are also very forgiving. You can borrow money, and you remember also I had a bit of capital from from my rich
adopted
parents.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the first shocker.
Yeah.
That you're a millionaire, yes, on paper, but there's the money before you collect it. You still have to sustain the business and keep things going. Then eventually it sort of stabilized, and I partied like crazy, man. Like when that first check hit, ooh. There's a place used to be called Backers.
Yes.
Back in the day, do you remember this?
Yes, I know.
So that was then you remember we just graduated also, so there's also just that hype. Then I moved to a nice apartment. I bought a Demio. So just moving up in the world.
At the time, okay. I mean that's really interesting. I'm curious. At the time, are you thinking about where you've come from at all? I mean, because you've come from this place of lack, you've come from this place of having to move around, essentially financially being put together by your family, a wider network and by the family. At this point in time, has it dawned on you what you're doing, what you're achieving, and where you're at?
I think at the beginning it was just a shocker. I was like, they're gonna catch me. So let me just cash as many checks as I can. I'm a fraud. They're gonna be on to me. Because even I was like, seriously, is it supposed to work this way? Because also remember how we know of life is you finish school, you tarmac, you become an intern, and so on. And sort of this didn't really work out for me this way. Although if you look at it, I had already been chasing it for 5 years.
Yes.
So I wasn't necessarily an overnight success in any way. But something strange happened. In 2013, once the excitement sort of faded, in 2014 I fell into a very deep depression. Part of it was that just imposter syndrome. And then also I think prior to that, a lot of my drive, as I had mentioned to you, had been about chasing survival. Like I need to eat, I need to be independent of dependency on family. So a lot of it was that. And then now here I am. Okay, so now you're independent, cool. There's the money in the bank, cool, you've got your demi and stuff. Now what? And then you now have to fight your demons. And so a lot of childhood trauma comes flooding back. Also there was an element of there's I think they call it survivor's guilt or something, where my success came in an interesting way because as soon as I did Young Rich, I started getting international attention everywhere. So I got on top 40 under 40 very quickly. Interviews were being done all over the place. And then once the cash flow actually started coming in, I actually had money in my pocket. I was rich. But my friends are all looking for jobs. So it almost gets immediately lonely in that kind of cycle. And then you almost like you don't belong anywhere. You don't belong with your peers in school. Also, professionals have not really accepted you. So you're a Johnny come lately too. You're going to fizzle out in no time. They've seen many of you.
Right.
So I end up in a very dark space that lasted many months. Then also as an artist and a creator, one of the things is there are so many one-hit wonders. That's not a thing. There's many people who come and have that one hit, and I started to fear that might be me also. Then Young Rich came with its own challenges that I was not ready for as a 21, 22-year-old kid. So we are platforming these people who are supposed to be entrepreneurs, and boom, one day one of them is a fraud. And then I'm being accused of platforming frauds. I'm like, I'm a kid, I don't know what a billionaire looks like.
I mean, and he had told his story many places.
There's
many places.
So there was, for those of you who don't, most of you I imagine will not know. So when this show hits the screens, it became a huge sensation in Kenya, Young Rich. And it's because it was a profile of young Kenyan billionaires, but we used to start it sensationally. So you'd say, my name is so-and-so and my net worth is that. So we had this guy who came and his net worth was $1 billion or something like 2 billion. And this Indian guy, he had a very polished story. You know what the due diligence was? When we met him, I read about him on Forbes. We went and met him. He took me to a house in Lavington. There were 2 Range Rovers and a pool. I'm like, that's what a billionaire looks like. That's it. He must be a billionaire. So we put him on this show, and that episode really blew the show up. And as I'm riding on this success, all of a sudden I have the responsibility of due diligence. And I could remember Mr. Mutua and the journalism classes that we took here. So there's also just that weight of having to deal with public scrutiny or being blamed for all of these things. But remember the poem I told you, the life is a just employer, he gives you what you ask. But once you set the wages, you must bear the task. I mean, who do you think you are to be paid that much money and not have any repercussions and responsibilities? But so the shock of all of that sort of has a mental, it weighs you down mentally to a degree. And then, you know, I was lucky enough to have some very solid people around me, and I sort of able to get a grip of it to a degree, because I don't think you ever really do get a grip of it. It's the uncertainty and the anxiety never leaves you, and the imposter syndrome also doesn't really leave you.
Yeah.
I think you'd agree. It
Yeah.
doesn't get better. Sorry for being so pessimistic.
Around this time when the depression and when the melancholy is turning into depression, and now you're going through this period, what are you making personally, not the company, but like Eugene, what are you taking home? What are your expenses? How are you spending your money?
Well, at the time, my operation was very lean. My apartment, we had a small, what was supposed to be the dining section, was the office. I had a wall full of everybody I was prospecting. And my team was basically, I used to direct and edit. So I'd go shoot during the day and come edit during the night. So pretty much majority of the money was mine for the keeping. So I was quite liquid. Actually, I don't think I've ever been as liquid as I was then.
At that point.
Yeah. So, you know, and in true fashion, of course, as I mentioned to you earlier, a lot of my money started to go into the next ventures. So after I got through this really weird slump, which is the 2014 period I'm telling you about, which is within the first year of getting the first gig, I sort of started to seek help, not necessarily like from a psychological perspective, but just from other entrepreneurs, like, is what I'm feeling normal? And I started to pay closer attention to the people who were profiling on Young Rich. So I started to seek counsel from them. And then you realize, anything you're going through, feeling, or are about to feel has been felt by someone else. And they've probably written a book about it also. So once you learn that you're not alone, and these things are teachable. And so then I get to, my first business mentor was Dennis Makori of One Phone Media. And he had a bunch of questions. So where is your operation? I said, in my house. So that's the first thing that you must change. So all of a sudden, the money I had in my pocket, now I have to go pay rent at an office. I have to go buy furniture. I have to hire a receptionist. And, you know, which was really good advice, because that's how you set structures. And then he said, you must start now putting the money that you're making into what your next product is. And he gave me some very solid advice that made the difference between what I have today and a lot of other filmmakers. So we had an analysis with him, and he said, okay, so right now you're a one-hit wonder, and you should be afraid, because if this show ends tomorrow, you have nothing. And many other production producers and artists are that way. You make this one nice thing, people like it, but you have nothing else. And so he started talking to me about a pipeline. So you must start thinking as if this has already ended. So what does that mean? How do you sell TV shows? Back then, it used to be something we call pilots. So you make the first episode and you use it to convince people to buy. So I started to spend a lot of my money making pilots and setting up this office and infrastructure. And then he also gave me another piece of advice, is that you must stop working in the business and work on the business. So you're the one going to the field every day and filming. You have to give that to someone else, so that you start spending your time looking for the next business, what you call a research and development, building structures and such. And so I started to do that, and as painful as it was, he said, you have to stop staying up all night to edit. Because, I'm coming late to meetings with him and stuff, because I've been up all night editing myself. Also because I don't trust anybody else. It's my baby, and all those things. And usually many people can do things better than you can. So all those little learnings, first of all, made me poorer.
Yes, because now you're spending money in employing people to do
and
things.
Building structures and stuff. But then it's also what allows you to build something. So that's where my money was going then.
Okay.
And backers.
Yes, of course, with the party. Okay. So this business structure that you set up is essentially what allows you to not be a one-hit wonder and begin to set a pipeline going. Tell me about being able to secure, because there's not too many buyers, right, of the film and entertainment product in our country. I mean, say that the big four media houses, then there's multi-choice, but there's not too many. So how do you how do you end up setting up a reliable network where when you're going to pitch and saying, I want to test this, people are able to give you that money?
It was much easier then than it is now. So when I first did Young Rich, it was on K24. K24 was much, again, for context for all of you, this was around 2013, and Uhuru Kenyatta was running for presidency then, and there had been this tiff between them and Citizen TV. So Kenyatta family had invested a ton of money in K24. So it's not the K24 you know now. They were investing in a bunch of cool stuff then. And this was before digital media had become what it is. So a lot of advertising revenue was also still going to those channels. So during those first few years, there's times I had multiple shows on one channel. And I was really churning them out. So like on K24, I had Young Rich, I had Get in the Kitchen. On NTV, I had Bing Bahati. At some point, those were running concurrently. On KTN, I had Foods of Kenya. On Maisha Magic, I had Story Yangu. So there was demand in the media houses then. And I remember some people in the media industry going like, what is this kid doing? Because I came with aggression. I was like, you remember what Dennis had told me?
Yes.
Work on the next.
Yes.
So I had piloted a ton of stuff. I come and pitch this, you say, no, I have 3 others.
Yeah.
And I'll be back again here after. I was really a pain.
Here's another one. Like,
I was really a pain.
Are they all paying you sort of the same amount, about $250 per episode?
No, yes. For the free tier channels.
Yes,
and then now once you go to some of the pay TV channels, the money changes dramatically.
Yeah.
So now you're getting 600,000 per episode. You're getting 700,000 at the time. And I can't really mention shows, but towards the height, I've also gotten to 10 million an episode. So the shows vary.
There's someone who's like just I think that they almost fell in their seat.
Yeah. But again, the game is very different now because digital has sort of eaten the cake and messed up that whole model.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had multiple shows running, and my model was very simple. I had a factory, so to this day I don't go to the store on set. I spend my days creating and piloting stuff that I can then come bombard you. So for everyone, and I've done over 20 TV shows now, for every one of the TV shows you see that has made it on air, there's probably another 5 that didn't yet.
They're going to make it someday.
Or not. There are also others. I have a folder called The Graveyard, which is just full of a ton of things that didn't work out.
Yeah. How do you set up, because you talked about a pipeline, you've talked about even having 6 shows running concurrently. So that means money. I mean, even if I just do the basic average of that $250 per episode, it means if one episode is running on each channel every week at times 6, that's what, at least 1.2, 1.3 million per week that's coming through. How
revenue.
are you, in terms of revenue, not profit revenue, how are you setting up your business to allow you to succeed? Because like you've said, you are not a one-hit wonder. You set up the business not to be a one-hit wonder, which many people are in the creative industry. How do you set your business up for investment? Because at some point you're able to land investors.
Yeah. So again, just this element of having mentors. We ended up setting up our company as a traditional business. What this means is very early on we got accounting. We started filing returns and those boring adult things.
Right.
And even then I was still running it very, I want to say, haphazardly kenyeji, like a kiosk, where there's not that much separation between you, the individual, and the business. But even then, because of the sort of mentors I had around, I was sort of like shielded from doing really idiotic things. But then around 2019, 2020 is when I met a gentleman called Dr. Sam Denya, who's the founder and CEO of Nairobi Women's Hospital. And he was my first and major investor in the business. And he's sort of the one who tuned my mind towards properly structuring a business. Because even then I was still running on fumes and, just like, what do you call it? Momentum. We're just going to keep churning more shows and bulldozing.
And more shows equals more money.
Yeah. But so then he comes in, he's sort of like the adult in the room. Like, look, you need to clean up taxes, you need to have HR, you need to do this and that. And so I would say it's one of those things that happened naturally, as action finds you, structure finds you doing things, and then you sort of have. I equate businesses to also like how a child grows up. When you're younger, you can sort of walk around with a full diaper and you're forgiven for it. You can have snoot on your nose. Right. But as you become 10, 11, you're expected to start cleaning up now. You can't be behaving the way you were then.
Right.
And as you become older, you also so you have adult responsibilities. So I would say the same for businesses. You almost have like to grow with it and start doing some of those adult things.
Okay. I've heard you on an interview talking about right now, I believe, changing your mindset from money chasing, so to speak, to I guess a new value proposition, right? What's been the most successful venture you've undertaken as an entrepreneur chasing money?
I would still say it's, you remember the thing that I mentioned earlier where a lot of the money I make just pretty much goes back to my own businesses. I think the most money I've made has still been in my primary business, which is television production. We've done some pretty sizable shows. Some of those international formats are quite some big budgets. We've also done some pretty big individual projects. Another, I would say maybe slightly easier cash cow is the club business. I own a club in the CBD called Number 7, which I've been running now for 8 years. So that's almost like, if you set up a club and you succeed, it's like almost licensed to print money. But there's also a downside. It's also where I've lost the most money. I had a club in Westlands that failed very quickly within, I think, the first 3 months of opening. As late as last year, I tried a venture in the same space where I lost a lot of money also.
What is a lot of money? What's this money you've lost? You told us money you've made. What's the a lot of money you've lost?
Double-digit millions.
Double-digit millions.
Double-digit millions. It's painful. Yeah. You felt the pain. And I think the mindset you're talking about is, I think as I'm getting older now, when I was maybe in my 20s, early 30s, it's so painful to say this, in my late 20s, as if there was that gung-ho, let's gamble everything, if it boils, I'll just make it back. After taking a few hits in the recent past, I think I have now gotten that fear of God that our parents have. It's like, you might not be able to make it back, and you can no longer be as reckless and as gung-ho as, there's that quote, it's that success tricks smart people into thinking they can't lose. And also, like, our minds are really bad at gauging probability. So as I mentioned, some of my early success wasn't necessarily because of me. There was all these elements of serendipity and stuff. But I was over there just gambling everything I have. So now it's more about like, okay, if I make it, I sort of want to keep it and be a bit more reserved and clear-minded. And less self-assured. So I think that this is the mind shift. And then you also now start to want, as you grow older, you also now start to learn that if you get some fundamentals right, the money almost always follows. So that's, how well networked are you? Have you built a good reputation in your field? Are you adapting quickly in the things that you're doing? And so it starts to become less about gambling and more about what are you sure about, and then doubling down on the things that you're sure about.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I want to go back a little bit to the conversation about having an investor come into your company. How did you decide what your company is worth at that time, and what's the process of you accepting money for giving away equity? What's that like? And then what do you do with that money that you're then sort of comes into the business?
So I went through a very traditional. This is always said at the beginning when you're fundraising, it's F&Fs, which is fools and friends. I have 3 Fs: fools, friends, and family. Yes. Those are people that's what when people's parents were investing in me, that's fools, friends, and family. Right. But after that, once you start to get into professional investors, it's actually quite a technical process. So there's something that they call a due diligence, DD, which is where they go through your financials, they go through your tax history, they go through your projections and what your business plan is. And then off of that, there's a scientific way of calculating what your value is. And usually you think it's way more. But once they eliminate risk and stuff like this, then the figure is arrived at. And then, at that point, you have the conversation about how much shareholding you're willing to give up. So in my case, mine was quite friendly because Dr. Daniel was already a friend and a mentor. So he almost like held me with gloves. So he was quite kind. And so that process was that. And so we did scientifically. And I yielded a certain percentage. But also, we put together a board of directors that sort of guides the business. But even with that said, I feel like there's a large obsession now with fundraising and getting investor money. But having been there now and seeing how it works, I would say perhaps if you've got an idea and you've got something going on, you want to focus more on creating a healthy positive cash flow business, as opposed to focusing too much on fundraising. And I think you're seeing that very clearly now with these startups that are very celebrated. They go out and raise $10 million. And if they're not able to make the next round of fundraising, you find that they weren't making enough revenue to cover rent.
Yes.
So it tells you that the whole model is wrong. So I feel like a lot of our conversations now in business, especially as younger people, is very focused about being investor ready, being fundraising and stuff. And I feel like it's almost a wrong approach. I would say the focus, you'll find, these old Kikuyu business people like to make fun of, who reuse everything and build brick by brick. And they live by that old model of spend less than you earn and just keep multiplying the ways of earning in traditional way. I'd say that's, if you're looking at long-term, maybe wealth building, that's a more sustainable way, as opposed to that hyper focus on fundraising and investor money.
Okay. How did you, what was your business model? What's your business model? What allowed you to, I guess, be in the profit, be in the black and have money and make money? What's DNR's business model essentially? Because I guess we see the shows, the ones that are on networks and on TV and stuff. But what else is under the hood?
So our business model has changed as it went, as we went along. It'll be a lie to tell you that I knew what I was doing when we began. And maybe that's also an encouragement to all of you here who are young and just have an idea. I think nobody fail forward. Nobody starts out with a full picture of what it was going to be. I had an idea for a TV show. I remember actually when we got the contract, when they told me that I couldn't sign it in my name, so I was like, what am I supposed to do? Say register a company. Okay, so then I go and try and figure that out. And we sort of like, mine came just from a passion. I wanted to make all these TV shows. I was already making them here in school. And I was doing them whether the money was there or not, whether there was a business model or not. I knew it's what I wanted to do. Then as we sort of went along, it's sort of now you clean up as you go, the analogy I gave of a child. Now, as we went along now, of course, now you have to formalize things. So what is our business model currently? Our business model currently is that we produce content primarily for television audiences. And the broadcasters where you watch it from, Showmax, and then they pay us for that service, whether it's via commissioning or licensing. But that model is slowly dying out. It's left for a very select few. Another model that we make money from is we also, there's no art without commerce. And the thing is, a lot of people you see who make a lot of money in the world is because they help someone else sell something. So that's why you're seeing like even a lot of the YouTubers and stuff you like, they make most of their money from merchandising. So, they're selling burgers, they're helping Coca-Cola sell drinks. So in our case, we also do quite a bit of commercial work. You might just not know it's us, but when Tusker turns 100, we did a documentary for them. We're doing some work for KCB. We're doing a lot of communication work for some of the NGOs, telling stories about the successes that they're having. And that's the non-sexier work, but it's just, commerce and art. Then we also have, we're also building our own audiences, which is what Control Z is. So when you go on Control Z, you can sort of see there's some partnerships there with Girl Effect and Nike. We've got Mary Stopes. So we're selling like this really interesting content, but also attaching advertiser content on it. So that's sort of the model now, which is what has been working for us so far. But for any new entrants now, they have to crack what the new model is. We're talking a bit about that because that I think that this model is going to end with us. Yeah.
And then you have to figure out something for the next coming. Okay. So far, I guess you made quite a bit of money, working really well. How do you? Because before you began to answer to a board of directors, how did you determine what your salary would be, what your take home would be?
I've always had an interesting thing about myself in the sense that I've never been very consumerist. So at the beginning, before there was a structure, I just used to pay for what I wanted, which wasn't much by my standards, I think. But I guess if you ask someone else, because what was I spending money on? I was, I bought a luxury car, I drove a Mercedes-Benz, it was nice. I was living in a nice house, I was traveling to the places I wanted to go. But even then, I was only still touching a very small portion of the money that I had. So the rest was going to keeping the company running and investing in other things. So before the board came, I went on a rampage of investments. That's when I put up the club.
It sounds like there wasn't a very clear demarcation between Eugene and DNR.
No, there wasn't.
Yeah,
there wasn't. And maybe sometimes you need that freedom because it's sort of what allowed us to do a bunch of things. So during that period, I tried my hand in a ton of things. That's when I invested in the club. I used to have a farm where we were doing. I don't know if you guys know about feedlots. So when you get premium beef in a restaurant, usually that cow has sort of like been pampered nicely so that the fat evens out and whatnot. So I had a feedlot. I invested in a bunch of other small ventures that failed there. I had a company called My Yearbook. So I'd say a lot of that money was going into just trying out a bunch of different things. Pilots.
How much would you say you've lost in these? How much money would you say you've lost in these?
In the pilots?
Yeah, no, just in the entrepreneurial things you've done.
Oh, a ton.
Yeah.
Certainly, some of those ventures are double-digit millions. And then it takes you a while to recover, and then now you lick your wounds again, and then you're back again.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no reason I should have been back in that club business last year.
Right.
But
you went back.
I was there. As you can see, I don't learn very quickly. But it's also, I guess, it's that stubbornness of entrepreneurship. And also, there's that Kikuyu saying that Magaria no Momahota, which means, it's only in trying do you succeed. And so, I can't be faulted for not trying.
Yes.
But as I mentioned, now as I get older, I'm just like, okay, maybe not try. You can't be as adventurous as you are now. You double down on the things that you're sure about. But so during that period, there's a lot of that, just experimentation on different things. Even now, even at the business, we've invested in a makeup line. We've tried a bunch of different things, and then some stick, and then you hope that the ones that stick are good enough to carry you through.
All right. So post investment, when the board comes in, that's when now you have a proper salary, and you're answering to people, and you have less room to play with the company money, so to speak. Okay. What's that been? Was that? I feel like that would be based on what you've painted before getting to the board level. It would feel restrictive now.
Not so much, because a lot of the playing around with money was for ventures anyway. So my personal life wasn't changed in any dramatic way. And also remember, I still have multiple sources of income from quite a number of ventures. So no, in my freedom in terms of just doing things, not so much. We have been able to do bigger things because of that structure, because we've been able to have more revenue and stuff like this. But at the same time, we've also made mistakes. In our business, we structured some things wrong, which we are now trying to correct. But I wouldn't say that my freedom has been curtailed in any significant way. There's definitely more discipline. There's definitely more thought that goes into things before I go off and make a 5 million investment off of some guy I met at a club last night.
Right.
So there's a bit more discipline, but I wouldn't say that the freedom has been curtailed that much.
Okay.
But even with that said, I think there's also a danger in over formalizing. When businesses are young, you need agility. So I would say if you're an entrepreneur with a young business, you'd want to think twice before formalizing too much at the beginning, because you need that agility to move things around and pivot if you want to. Because one of the things about being very formal is a lot of the ways small businesses become formal now is by becoming corporate. And you see, the corporate model is usually works for companies that have been there for 60 years, and they actually do need that formal processes. I always give this example at my office. How long does it take to buy a pen? So you simply just walk to the shop and buy the pen. But when you formalize a business, there needs to be a requisition. There needs to be justification for it. It needs to go through how many levels of approval. It needs to be in the budget. And then the budget is going to be discussed on Monday. And then we need to look at the cash flows.
For you to just buy a pen.
So you can imagine now that formality and just buying a pen. So the guy who can just buy a pen, vis-a-vis the one who's going through, does it align with the annual financial budget we had made? So it can complicate things in an interesting way. And especially for creative businesses. So I'd say there's pluses and minuses to it, but I'd be careful to not formalize too early. Okay.
What does, right now where you're at, what does financial success look like? Because I think based off a previous conversation that we had, I think it was a year ago, you told me essentially the figure you had had in terms of the amount of money you wanted to make, you already hit that. So what does financial success look like for you now?
The figure I had when I was much younger.
Yes, when you're much younger.
The figure I need now, I have
what was the one you had when you're much younger?
I remember when I was here in USIU, I used to think, like, if I just have 10 million, bro, maybe I'm 10 you on a tenner. And then, you hit that pretty quickly. And then, you realize also minus expenses and stuff, that it's not that much, also because of inflation. And then also when as you get more exposure, you realize, my chairman, Dr. Danya, again, always makes jokes, a fan of me, and he says, when I met Eugene, he thought he was the richest man in the world. And I did. Like, I've got my Mercedes, I can travel anywhere in the world I want. I can go to Bacchus.
At that time, if you'll answer, I'll ask to see if you'll answer. What was your average monthly spend around that time, give or take?
I've never had a crazy spend. To this day, if you do maybe rent and plus travel and maybe $500,000, at the height
At
of
that
it.
time.
At the height of it.
Okay.
No, but also they are factored in things like travel and asset repayments and things like this.
Yeah.
And that's like on the maximum side.
Yeah.
But usually, and then once the excitement wears off at the beginning, my expenditure in a month now is quite low. You've got your big ones, accommodation, transportation and such. In my case also because I do a lot of networking, I spend quite a bit of money on hosting, and that's like throwing parties and dinners and things like that because it's a big part of how our business works. It's not much, and I think like it's always been between 300 to 500.
Thereabout.
And it's stuck there for many years, even now. But what was the other question? There was
the other question was around what does financial success look like for you now with where you're at?
Now it's stability. I think as I mentioned when I was younger, it was just like how far can I push the button, and I think now it's about you graduated how many years ago?
12.
12 years ago.
12 years
no longer used. I'm 35 now.
Yeah.
So now financial success looks like a stability. I'm very keen to see what are the things I know well and can I double down on those things. At the age I'm at now, you're not supposed to be on the mortgage side, not on the rent side. You're also starting to think about retirement because age is becoming a reality. And also because our industry is going through quite a bit of disruption. The media industry is in a mess. So how do you consolidate? How do you ensure that you're holding to as much as you keep, but at the same time also innovating and growing? I mean, it's so absurd now that my friends and I, it used to be that when we link up, it's to party, and now it's just last week. That guy now looking at houses. Looking at money markets and things like this, and also now realizing that I can't remember. I've told you like all through from high school, every money I made just went back to
the business,
to my pile,
right?
Which is gambling really, if you think about it, because the way the gambler wins and then throws everything back to the table, and over they will win again. So now this is no longer the case. It's how do you then put that money to other more stable? I'm becoming an old man. It's basically just like now it's about stability and ensuring that your future is secured.
Okay. So I mean, through the conversation that we've had, and this I want to ask. So in terms of like how Eugene functions, how Eugene's money functions, do you have like, I guess, financial people talk about an emergency fund, and investing in different things. Is the business where your money is at? Is that where everything is at for you?
No, not anymore. Not anymore. I'm quite divested. I own quite a bit of real estate. As I mentioned, I've got different ventures that are in different places. And now, of course, going to just those boring investment avenues, the money market funds and stuff, stock market. But even with that said, a large part of who I am and my value is still in my primary business. Yeah.
Okay. What is your happiest financial memory or happiest financial moment?
I'll give you two. When my friend and I set up that company teaching primary school kids, remember I told you like I never had enough transport to get to places, and I remember when we got our first check and it was for 90,000 shillings. And the first thing we did is we went to McFry's in town, or Sanford, or one of those, and just to have chicken and chips.
That was
and I remember it was a Friday afternoon, and we were just, I don't remember being that happy. Because it was the first time like you're almost realizing like I can actually I can create something in my mind and go put some action to it, and then it's money now. And then also the first time I received my first million check. Nobody tells you it's not one check because it has to be broken.
Yes.
I don't know why Kenya you can't
bank. 99999.
Yeah, so it was 2 checks. Yes. It's just and then you deposit and you sort of let it sit there for a while because if you withdraw 10K, it's no longer a million. So you're operating on Fuliza if you have it now.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those they give the example of when the first time you get high on a hit or something, and you can just never top that high ever again.
So even like the 10 million, the whatever million after that.
No, look, after a while, money becomes desensitizing. It's just figures and expenses and stuff. And there's also a theory that past a certain amount of I think they call it the hedonistic treadmill. hedonistic treadmill. And what that means is past your certain basic commodities, which is you can eat well, you have a nice car, you live in a nice neighborhood, and you're feeling secure. Past that, there's no higher feeling.
That will come from that.
You buy a new car, you're happy for a week, and then you go back to your status quo of happiness. Yeah. Sometimes you're low, and you're low for a while, but then you just go back to your status. So after a while, I've not made $1 billion yet, so I imagine maybe $1 billion might change things. But for the millions now, tens of millions, it's all the same because you just go back quickly to your state of being. So I can't say of course you're happy sometimes when you get a big deal. Oh, that's a big contract we've just signed, and you're happy again, and then very soon after, and you'll be surprised at how quickly you go back low. I think you know this by now. It becomes not as fulfilling as you might hope, which is why you must also work on other parts of your life, which is family, friendships, and stuff. Because financial success alone will never. Once you hit that hedonistic treadmill, it's you constantly just go back to that. So I feel like I've already. There's recently actually now when I look at money, when big money checks in, I just see problems because are we doing the taxes right? Of course, so by the time you've gotten anything of 50 million, you also have to start thinking about suppliers and the work it's going to take to get. So it's not as that joy of that first million or that first 90,000. Nothing beats it.
Doesn't come back. Okay, I have one final one actually. Based on the story, based on where you came from, based on the setting you gave us as a 7-year-old who lost both his parents at 7 years old.
Lost
a parent both at 7 years old. I mean, what were the odds? The odds of you being the person that you are now, the odds of you having lived with different relatives between 7 to 18, different houses, being moved about, being able to achieve the life and the success that you have now, because there are many people who, I guess, would have a leg up or have a silver spoon or whatever the case is, right? But don't quite, I don't want to say they achieve as much, but their life sort of takes a different path. Like, what are the odds of you, and that's in a vacuum, the odds of you becoming the person that you are now, and what do you think has played the biggest role in you being able to live out to become who you are now?
The odds are pretty bad. I think we living in the country that we live in, and that's the worst part about life. It's where you're born is a lottery. I imagine all of us would have been born in one of those Norwegian countries, where as soon as you come into the world, you have a stock you have a share in the oil fund, and
whatever.
But you're born here through no choice of your own. And so in my case, I feel extremely, extremely lucky and thankful that things worked out in the way that they did for me. And the biggest contributors there, I'd say, would be, sometimes there's the advantage of disadvantage. So I imagine that I'd been probably born into more comfortable settings. Perhaps my drive would have been different. Perhaps I would not be in SIU using the equipment to do stuff. I'll probably be partying at Fifi's. So I feel like I've definitely benefited from the advantage of disadvantage. That coupled with work. So I've always been very aware that if you're disadvantaged, if everybody's starting the race from here, you're starting here. So you have to run twice as hard just to catch up, and then to also hopefully stand a chance of winning. So it's not lost on me that I've had to work harder than ideally the average person, and that hasn't changed to this day. The hours I put in are still immense. I wake up every morning at 4:15 a.m. I go to the gym. I read more books than your average person. When in need be, I'll put in a bunch of hours. I'm constantly working. It's become a bit more balanced now because I also have quite a bit of time for just relaxation and other activities. But I would say that hard work and just a large degree of luck. And then living life intentionally. Because now in the age and day we live in, you have information at your fingertips. So you can literally get hacks about how someone else did it. And how do you do that? It's books, it's podcasts. You can just even the conversation we're having now, you can just tell you this is how it worked for me. So I'm a big learner from that. How did it work for so-and-so? How did it work for so-and-so? And just being intentional about taking those learnings and applying them in your own life. So I'd say luck, information, and the advantage of disadvantage.
Okay. I think that sort of wraps up our conversation for today. Thank you guys for coming. And for the guys who are watching, thank you for watching. This has been a fantastic episode of Financially Incorrect. We will see you the next time we post. I don't know if it's going to go on a Tuesday or Friday, but whatever day it is.